Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 79th episode of Stories of Service, ordinary people who do extraordinary work. And I am the host of Stories of Service, Teresa Carpenter. And this weekend, as I said yesterday, we had two podcasts in one weekend, which is not something I do very often, but it's always nice when I get to host so many amazing guests. And today I have one more amazing guest, Matt Scherer. How are you doing today?
I am great, Teresa, and I'm know you're up there in somewhere in England, and it's a little bit cooler than here it is in San Antonio, Texas, where it's about 82 degrees and sunny and warm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, lucky you. Well, I would say lucky, but 82 is a little on the hot side, but definitely different than it is here. Yes, today it was sunny, but it was a little cold. But that is par for the course here in England. Yes, I'm 45 minutes northwest of London in a town called Pinner, which is actually the birthplace of Elton John.
Really? Is there a house or a placard saying on this is where Elton John got his start?
So I'm sure there is. I have not yet discovered it, but it is definitely on my to-do list. And hello, Kelly Danches. She joined us a little early, I had seen. So thank you so much for joining us on the call today. So I'm going to just go into reading a little bit more about Matt, and then we're going to get started and start asking some questions. So transition is one of those things that's very, very near and dear to my heart because as we move through these life seasons, there comes a point when it's time for all of us to move on to the next chapter. And so that's why I consider it such a blessing to bring Matt to the show. His work in helping others with the military transition is so instrumental to giving others support that is so desperately needed at a time when one can feel disconnected from their sense of purpose, identity, and belonging. He is a retired Air Force public affairs supervisor, and he works with military professionals in transition. And with another veteran, he formed the Military Transition Roundtable to assist veterans in transition through a MasterMind approach. And I thought this was interesting. The MasterMind concept dates back in current history to meetings where executives like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and Charles Schwab would form these groups to address the issues they faced with their businesses. Pulling together like-minded leaders, these mastermind groups give everyone a chance to share their issues and get insight from others in the group. Today, the Military Transition Roundtable conducts 6 meetings to accommodate military professionals all the way from the Far East to Europe. So welcome, Matt. Thank you for coming to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Teresa. And anytime I get a chance to share what we do at the Military Transition Roundtable with people who are looking at transition, I'm always happy to do that. And I loved how you did the intro for the mastermind. That's the unique thing that we do in our organization. We put people together. I noticed that Kelly Dankus, who's one of our participants, has joined us. So if she wants to weigh in maybe later, she can tell you exactly her perspective on this. But it's great to see people make progress from kind of sitting back, not going to say anything, to actually becoming fully engaged in the process with others like them. So I really, really enjoy the opportunity to work with them. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity to talk to you about it today.
Absolutely. So first off, I always, when I talk to someone, most of my guests have either are presently serving in the military or have previously served in the military. So I always love to know why you joined the Air Force and just a little bit about your Air Force career.
So I joined the Air Force because I was a student teacher in Illinois. And it's like, no, this is not for me. And I worked part-time for the newspaper in Rock Island, Illinois. And I was like, I think I really want to do this. So I talked to the assistant sports editor and he says, Matt, you're going to be at the bottom of the food chain. You're not going to make a lot of money. You might want to think about 4 years in the military, which I did. And 4 became 8 and then became 12, then became 20. And so I joined the Air Force to see the world and to get the experience to become a public relations guy. And when I retired in 1997, I went back to school a couple years later and I got my degree in marketing at the University of Texas at San Antonio, AKA the Roadrunners. So that's a little bit about me. Can tell you honestly, I'm the only enlisted guy in the history of Lowry Air Force Base, now closed, that the community, the mayor, gave me my own day on my last day there before I went to Naples, Italy to work with the late Admiral Borda and the rest of the people in AF South back in 1993, 94, and 95.
What was your day about?
There was a proclamation. I have a proclamation. Big old
No way.
Yeah, a big old proclamation. They gave me a proclamation, and it was like whereas and whereas and all
Yes,
that.
yes. I know
Yeah,
all about proclamations. That's
yeah.
so cool.
I'd written a couple before, but it's like what? They're doing what? And but it was really uh, one of the banner days of my military career. And of course, if you were to look over to the left, you'll see it still hanging, but the ink is still kind of, the mayor is they got to get a better pen for the mayor for future proclamations.
Oh, I love it though. Those are such neat things that government does for people. I remember when I went to Rota, it's this island off the coast of Indonesia, I want to say, and they made me an official citizen. So they gave me this like little citizen ID card, and they gave me a certificate. And I just remember thinking, wow, that's so cool. I love those little ways that government can really do good things for people and appreciate others' service. So that's really neat. So after the military, did you go into some particular like marketing related business and then transition to what you're doing now?
I had problems finding my path, but once I got into college, I found my path, and then I also worked part-time for the San Antonio Express News as a sports reporter and did some other freelance stuff. But I was like, I know I'm leaving here. I'm going to get the names of all these reporters and these editors. And so I built a really long relationship. So I did a lot of public relations for 10 years. And then I found my calling, which is to work in LinkedIn, but more importantly, to help military professionals embrace the full branding power of their LinkedIn profile.
How did you find that as your calling? Like, what was it that you saw? What need did you see that was not being met?
The biggest thing I see, Teresa, is that everybody thought that LinkedIn is just a recap of your resume. And LinkedIn will have you believe that because that's how they make their millions of dollars, because they're only looking for the who are you and the skills you have. So that when someone's looking for a crisis communications, Navy, those kind of things, then you'll pop up. But what I saw was an opportunity to use LinkedIn as a storytelling platform. And so I started helping people with that. In the course of the last 5 or 6 years, I've written 3 different versions of the book, LinkedIn for Military. So I want to make it very clear that I do not work for LinkedIn, and everything that I've written in my book is not what LinkedIn wants you to say that they've officially endorsed it, or, as you know, public relations.
Sure.
Yeah, but the book's been well received. I have had a lot of people go, wow, didn't know you could do that with LinkedIn. Didn't know you could write my own story, Matt, but you helped me. So I really enjoyed that.
Well, if it wasn't for LinkedIn, Matt, I wouldn't know probably like 70% of my podcast guests. I mean, this platform has been such an incredible opportunity for myself personally to talk about issues and go deep into things that I think need to be discussed and where I feel you can have a thoughtful conversation about. So for me, it's storytelling for advocacy, because advocacy is something that's near and dear to my heart, which is the ability that everyone, no matter what level they're on, has the ability to make meaningful change.
And by the way, I loved the post that you shared about a day ago about the Marine that was a sniper and all that. And then I just took it and recapped it with a YouTube link. And then I've also reposted it on my own Medium channel, because I really think that the non-veterans, the people that don't know what it's like to serve, need to see that guy and hear his story.
I agree. And I am thankful. I know I was critical of the way the hearing was conducted, but that was more on a process level. It
Right.
doesn't take away the fact that I'm grateful that they even did it. And so I think sometimes we as advocates, we want change right away, change, but we've got to be patient. Anybody that tells you, I'm reading a book right now called Be More Mosquito, and it's by Mark Abramson. He's a animal campaigner in the UK who I'm going to have on my show. And
Right.
It's all about all the steps to be a good campaigner. And patience is one of them, and having that long game in mind, because change does not come overnight. It comes in fits and starts, and it slumps at certain times, and you just have to keep going. So I appreciate what you're doing on LinkedIn and the way you're using this platform. What have been some of the things that have surprised you about the reception to some of the classes that you do on LinkedIn? And then we'll go into the MasterMind. But I do want to kind of focus down on LinkedIn right now. So what were some of the things that you just weren't expecting as you were teaching these courses and kind of going through this process?
I think the biggest thing was that when LinkedIn created the banner, which they did about 5-6 years ago, most people didn't recognize it as a branding billboard. And so my colleague, Bruce Colhart, came up with a grid, and the grid is such that you can see it for both the desktop and the mobile side of LinkedIn. And so I just love advocating for people because honestly, 70% of us are going to look at someone's profile for the first time on a mobile phone. And so that banner, along with that headline, it's got to stick, and it's got to say, well, this is who I am, and here's a little bit about me. And so I love talking to people and like, yeah, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that? And then we work together, and suddenly they've got these really great banners and they're telling these stories. And it's like, it's just fantastic to be able to do that. So that's one of the things. And the other thing I want to say is a lot of people on LinkedIn want you to think that it's all about the accumulation. What's the word I want to use? I call it buckets. Top secret. I've got this, and got that. Well, I found that you can put that at the bottom of your about section with all the key skills and get the same result. And so advocating away from the key skills that some people who work in LinkedIn and are staffing people want you to use their way it's okay, but there's a better way. So I'm always like you, I'm an advocate for better ways to communicate your skills and your goals on LinkedIn.
I love it. Yeah, just today I updated my headline, and I said what my, I guess, my value offering is, like what it is that I'm trying to do, and sort of really narrowing in on what all of this means, this online presence that I'm building. And I really love the idea that social media, when used responsibly, it really is a leveling platform for people of all walks of life to be able to communicate a message, share their story, and do the things that they want to do. It just eases that communication. Is there risks? Yes. Is there scammers? Yes. Is there disinformation? Yes. There's all those things. But I think the ability to use these tools for a good purpose, in my view, outweigh some of the things that unfortunately bad actors use it for. But bad actors are in every industry and in every communication platform. And I think it's just up to us as the people who are using these platforms in a positive way to continue to advocate that they be open and accessible and used to their fullest potential. Would you agree with that?
I really do agree with that. And what you were saying made me think of a talk I did Thursday in San Marcos at Texas State. So I have a friend who is a retired Army lieutenant colonel, asked me to come speak to some of his students on LinkedIn. And I always say, everybody knows that LinkedIn is for the job search aspect of it, but it's also a great place to help others. And so the helping others part, and I showed them some slides of some things like in Afghanistan and hurricanes and other ways there where people are helping others. And I think that's one of the most misunderstood parts of the platform, is how to help others.
Absolutely. Alfredo Torres comes to mind, and so does Sarah Carroll. Those two are so service minded, and they constantly, like you, Matt, they're holding webinars. They have a servant's heart. And when I see them, or even like some big YouTuber like Mark Latta who does Soft White Underbelly, that's sort of who I model my stuff that I'm doing after, because I see what they're doing, and it's really just about giving back and being of service and having that mission to take what you do in the military as being part of something bigger, and doing that in that next chapter, in that next part of your life. And LinkedIn and these tools give us the ability to do that. So transitioning to the MasterMind, how did that come about? And did the LinkedIn courses and the LinkedIn book happen first, and then you transitioned to putting together the MasterMind group?
So the LinkedIn courses and the book came first. And I was with my co-founder, Don Gleason. We were at an event, believe it or not, it was at the San Antonio Zoo, and this motivational speaker said, "Don't do this alone." And it was like, yeah. And then that afternoon, we had a phone call with a guy in Australia about masterminds, and he says, this is really a unique concept, a mastermind for people who are in transition. You're going to do okay with that. And so we created that over 3 years ago, right before COVID. And because of COVID, I think it also flourished because people suddenly couldn't go anywhere. And now we're in, groups of 8 to 10 people. And the mastermind concept, you mentioned it was going back to the time of Thomas Edison and Charles Schwab, but really, my colleague Don Gleason brings up a better point. Jesus Christ and his apostles were probably the original mastermind group. Maybe there are others, but that's just an example. And so what we do is we have a process, but we don't let the process overrule what we do as far as helping others. One, we hold people accountable for their actions. Two, we celebrate their wins and we look at their challenges. And then collectively, we take time to look at one or two major challenges to get everybody's opportunity to weigh in on that topic.
God, I love it. It's so funny is that I see the mastermind concept very similar to a support group. Like,
Right.
But in the sense though, there's just a little more structure to it. Like you said,
Right.
There's an accountability piece, but even in the anonymous groups, there's an accountability piece because you have a sponsor and then the sponsor takes you under their wing and they hold you accountable to going through the 7 steps. So there is that structure. So I see the mastermind concept very similar to almost like a therapy support group. Just like I sort of see, and I was telling this to a friend earlier, that the leadership concepts of so many people out there teaching leadership and doing coaching on leadership, I see them really as just a form of counselors. They're just the same as a therapist or anybody else who's in the helping profession that's working. It's just in little different areas and different aims, but it's very similar. And how long have you had the mastermind? And tell me a little bit about some of the people that have gone through the group and sort of what they've gained from it.
So we've started 3 years ago. We've met with one group, then we added a second group, then we added a group on Tuesday, then we added another group on Tuesday, and then we created another group to help those that were in the Far East. Because honestly, if you're in the United States, there are a lot of organizations that will help you with transition, but there wasn't a lot of opportunities for people that are stationed in Japan or Korea or Guam. And so we created that group on Monday at 4:00 our time. And then the last group that we created was one for entrepreneurs, because not everybody wants to go work for someone else. They want to own their own business. So we have an entrepreneurs group that meets on Tuesdays, our time at 11:30. Each of them has a unique personality. Each of them has people in there that are really strong leaders. And some of them is like, they come for a couple times and they move on. But ideally, we see about 50% of the people that stay with us have done really well. We have about 95 graduates in the program. And
Wow.
the biggest takeaway that we found, and Don, I want to credit my colleague Don Gleason with this. In our own research, we found that the retention for people on that first job after military service was significant. So according to some research, I believe Syracuse University Institute for Families and Military Veterans, they came up with a study that said that the typical military guy transitions to a new job about 46% or more in their first year. Well, our research has shown that our group is in about the 22% level, because they just have identified the culture they're looking for. They've identified what they want to do, and they've had the time to think through what they really want to accomplish when they leave military service.
I love it. Well, if you'd like, I'm going to go ahead and start to share the screen, and I'd like to show the testimonial that you gave to me earlier. So give me just 1 second to pull that up.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept of MTR was really interesting to me, because there are a lot of different veteran space kind of organizations out there that help you with resumes and help you with just sort of how to dress and all of those kind of things. But there's very few of them that really want to invest the time that's needed to be able to help you through the long continuum of planning. And transitioning.
For those of you who are joining us by voice, I should just go back real quick, and I should have just read that question. Sorry about that.
Transitioning isn't something that you can do quickly. At least if you want to try to do it with style and grace, you can't necessarily do it quickly. It needs to be well thought out, and you need to have a support group and a support network. So the Military Transition Roundtable concept to me really spoke to me, because it was a way for me to be able to blend with another group of individuals and hold myself accountable for the things that I said I was going to do, to help pick up ideas from other people who are transitioning that might actually help me to transition. And then lastly is, it was a good way for me to just be able to be told, hey, you're not doing what you said you were going to do, or just honest feedback coming to me.
Does rank matter when you're in a MTR? And I can't see the other part that it says there. You can probably help me out there, but does rank matter when you're in a military transition roundtable?
That's exactly it. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Nope.
Yeah, that my rank was left at the door, and that whenever I logged in for my session and we were all chatting about our plan and what we were doing, it didn't matter what service you came from. It didn't matter what your rank was. It didn't matter what your job was or any of those kind of things. It was a group of like-minded individuals who were all trying to do the same exact thing, which was transition from the military. And the idea then of being able to keep each other on track and serve as sort of that support network for each other really sort of helped me a lot as I was moving through the process.
I love it. Now let's, oops. All right, we're back. Now that's great. That's a great testimonial of what you guys provide. And thank you for sharing that with us.
My pleasure. And if I could just give a little more context to that gentleman, he was the mission support commander at Randolph Air Force Base, and he was also the commander of 3 security forces squadrons at 3 different bases in San Antonio. And he was dealing with COVID, and he was dealing with all the other things in transition. So he would be one of those people who say, you know, if you are telling me that you're too busy to take care of your transition, I want to disagree with you. In fact, we have an hour-long interview with him that we send to people that are saying, oh, I don't have enough time. Okay. Jeff had 2 major commands that he was in charge, had to deal with COVID, and he was also dealing with his transition. So it can be done. It's difficult, but it can be done.
So I have to ask this. What is the charge to join the Military Transition Roundtable?
There is no charge. We work on grants and we work off of organizations like the VFW. USA has sponsored us. We're going after other organizations. So having the opportunity to tell our story today on your podcast is such that I can send it off to people and say, hey, you're with this foundation. This is what we do. I know you support military transition, but we do it in a different way, one that's really kind of result-based.
I love it.
Thank you.
I really do. I think this is such a great idea. And the fact that you're able to give this to service members free of charge and use the grants and the sponsors and other things to keep it going is phenomenal. Have you thought, or are you going to consider at some point doing an event, an in-person event, some sort of a conference or a symposium?
So let me ask you a question. Yes, I have thought about it. And yes, we're doing some really simple things. But when are you leaving the Navy, and when are you coming to?
Yes. My September 2024 is actually my projected rotation date, but I'm free to go. I'm off. My detailer can transfer me as soon as May of 2024, so I still have some time.
So let me say this. I love your idea about that. We are working with people right now to put on this conference. And one of the things we do is we cover a lot of various things in our monthly webinar. So at the end of this month, a Lieutenant Colonel by the name of Glenda Rass is going to talk about how she made a 180-degree turn from being a weapons control systems officer, the ones that vector in, Tom Cruise, those guys, the ones that don't get all the glamour. And then she went from that to to decide she want to be an audiologist on her own business. So we have those kind of things. So we inspire people to look at their options, because I think the biggest thing that military professionals, and I've come up with a new hashtag, MPIT, which is military professional in transition, probably would look really good on a t-shirt. It is to look at your opportunities and challenges. I mean, you have opportunities, and if you plan it far enough in advance, you're going to reach those opportunities. So let me go back to my friend Jeff. Jeff's now working for Amazon as chief of security development for their new facilities. Jeff knew when he talked to us that he did not ever want to work in a security forces position where you get a call at 2:00 in the morning. Hey, Jeff, we've got this problem here and we want you to address it. He doesn't do that anymore because he knows exactly what he wanted when he left the military.
Mm-hmm. And I think that everybody's at a different stage in their journey with transition. That's why you really have to talk to so many different people and really dive deep into this issue when you're thinking about changing your job, because it's so individualized based on the person. Like for me, I really do consider myself to be like that servant heart minded person that isn't really about getting another job if I don't have to. I really just want to keep doing what I'm doing, putting out the podcast, volunteering for causes that I'm passionate about. If a campaign comes up that's for a particular issue that I think I can lend my voice to and my support for, I want to have the ability to do that. And having a career in the military really opens up a lot of doors for people and gives them, no matter what their rank is, I think that opportunity to see what's out there and to transition, hopefully in a good way. What has been, it's from you're doing all these webinars, what do you think has been the biggest challenge that service members struggle with when it comes to?
I'll be real honest with you, the fear of reaching out to others, to find mentors and to talk to people.
Yep.
I think that the MasterMind group that we have is such that people know someone. And if I'm going to send you to someone like a Michael Brownfield or a Keith Cassant, is because I know them and they're going to be comfortable. But if I could say one thing to anybody listening to this and you're in that transition mode, do not be afraid. Let me say it again. Don't be afraid to reach out to people, to tell them, hey, I'm looking at this or that. I think I want to be an audiologist. I think I want to do this in the next phase of my life. What do I need to do to be successful? I think that's really important to everybody, from the, first term sailor to colonel like my friend Jeff Carter, who spent 26 years in the Air Force. You have to be able to have the confidence to go out and ask people, hey, what about this? What about that? What do I need?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kelly, I'm sorry, I've not been putting your post up here, but Kelly says, yeah, finding your voice coupled with reaching out. And she also said that the MTR sponsored webinars are awesome. And she agreed that these are similar to a support group. And she also wanted you to know what a wonderful gesture you had upon your departure, the proclamation. So
can I say something about Kelly?
Sure.
Kelly represents what we try to accomplish in the Military Transition Roundtable. And Kelly, I'm going to say this because I really care about the journey. You're kind of shy and you didn't really want to engage people on LinkedIn when I first talked to you and when I first coached you. Now, my friend, I know because I watch you. You're actually engaging people. You get very comfortable with reaching out and helping others. And to me, you're one of the many success stories we've had at MTR. But whenever I think of people that kind of overcome that fear of putting their foot into the water to reach out to others, you're one of my inspirations. So thank you for saying those nice things about me, Kelly, but you are an inspiration to me. And it's what keeps me going when I do interviews like this or when I'm working in groups like yours. Thank you so much.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. It's about finding that connection. She says, I'm still working on it, but you have changed my life.
Well, thank you for that. And I I'm only a phone call away, Kelly Dinkus.
Wow. I'm going to get emotional. All right. Anyway. Yeah, no, it's amazing that the impact that you can have just by putting yourself out there and saying that you're there to help. I often, mentor people who want to go into the community, because I have a very active video that I did 2 years ago on the public affairs community. So recruiters and others, they find me, and I say that I will never say no to somebody who reaches out to me and wants advice on the public affairs community, or wants me to do an appraisal and interview them and take them through that process. I might be busy. It might take a couple weeks for me to get back to them sometimes, but I think that mentoring and finding those people that are going to take the job after you, or that are in the position that they need that help, you got to be the one to help them.
Pay it forward. Yes, right before I retired from the Air Force, when I was at the hospital, Wilford Hall, I looked at our whole exercise plan, and it was like, we assumed too many things. I went to my boss and said, Dewey, we got to do this and this and this. Let's fix it. So I'm like you. I look at a problem and I want to fix it. And I see situations and opportunities to help people improve their communications process. And as a former Air Force public affairs exercise planner, I was not the most popular guy in my shop. But let me say this: when we exercise, we exercise. As much as the guy in charge of the exercise planning team would have let me, I would do everything in my power to test the people in public affairs, because when the real thing happens, it's like second nature to you, and it's important to do those things.
It is. It is important to have a love of your craft. I mean, I love this craft. So when I see a video that could have the sound up a little, or I see, like, the one video I saw a couple days ago had subtitles, because, of course, we interview a lot of people that are not from the United States. And so sometimes their English isn't perfect. And so we want to make sure people can hear what they're, or take in what they're saying. And so sometimes that's all it takes too, is just these little tweaks to a product. And then you've hopefully made what that sailor put together that much better. And it's all just comes from spending that time and being of service, and really what my show is all about. What do you think is next? I know we talked about doing the events for the MasterMind group. What are some of the other things that you kind of envision, like where you would like to take this?
Well, I tell you what I really would like to talk about, and I have to say the U.S. Navy is kind of behind the rest of the services in terms of transition. And I really would like to look at a way that we could do some podcasts, since I know you're in the public affairs community, and I also worked in NATO, so I know how NATO works and all that. I want to challenge you that we might look at a way to talk about transition, like the planning, the thought process, to look at your education, talking to your accredited veteran services officer. That would be my future thing, is how do I reach the folks in the Navy? We're doing really well in the Air Force and the Army, and
Army really good, yeah,
and the Marine Corps. But I know you're passionate about serving in the Navy, and I appreciate that. And by the way, I did read your post about when you were a knuckle buster working on aircraft, and I said, and I saw those pictures and said, "Yeah, she gets it." But I really would like to look at a way that we could do some more of this, but really focus in on the folks that are in your part of the fleet there in Navior. And as you know, I worked for the late Admiral Mike Borda, and I became his executive producer for his Armed Forces Network Navy Europe show. And originally I thought, well, I'm just going to go up there and take the lights and make sure it looks okay and do the white cards. People that are in public affairs know what we mean by the white cards and all that, and make sure the lights were right. And he got up there and he answered a question from the news guy, and it was like a minute and a half long. And it was like, I went like this. And the Admiral says, "Sergeant Scherer, did you not like my answer?" "Permission to speak honestly, sir?" "Yes, sir. You answered 3 things, but you should have done it like this. Point 1, point 2, point 3. And after that, he would look and ask, "So what do you think?" "Respectfully, sir, I know what you're trying to do in terms of your broadcast, and I admire you for that, but it's a little too long." Now, I'll tell you one last story about the Admiral. So I got my commendation medal from him because I arranged for it. I was on his staff. He came 3 months after I got my medal, went up to my then 2-year-old daughter and my 5-year-old son and talk to them like he was their best friend.
Oh, that's great.
It was, and I've remarried since I left Italy, but their mother the whole way home says, I know you're not talking to the Admiral about your family that much. I said, yeah, you would be right. But it was amazing because he just got, had the cards. And I think the yeoman said, yeah, he's going to be there at the Christmas party. And it's just, he walked up to Kate and Pete and said, Kate, how are you? Peter, how are you?
It's so wonderful when you have a leader like that is just so personable and takes the time to get to know your family and just really cares. And you just, it makes or breaks you. It really does. I'm in a place now where I definitely feel so supported, and it's making me like wonder if I think I'm still going to get out and retire, but man, it's a tough decision, because if I could have every command climate like I'm living in now, I don't think I'd want to walk away. And so it's just, it's tough, because you really get to, when you get to see the results of your hard work, and you get to see, like, every member of my team gets to see something that they produce go somewhere and make something of it. We've got 500 people on our staff that always want something from public affairs, and we are not at all sidelined. We're not afterthought. I mean, none of that happens where I work. And the people really appreciate and understand what we bring to the table. And so when that happens, it's such a great feeling. And so getting back to your mastermind now, because I know I'm kind of going into a non sequitur, I just think that's something that you can bring to that group, and even help them to know sort of what kind of a climate and what kind of an environment they want to walk into, and which ones they don't want to be in.
And so I know we've talked about this before we did this interview. Teresa, you just got to let me know when you're ready to get started. And we've got the group, which meets on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock our time, which I believe is 5 o'clock your time. And that would be a good group for you to consider joining us, because you can see for yourself. But we're going to force you to make some decisions about what you want to do next. And you said a minute ago, the culture. Find the right culture. That's really important. I think that's why we're doing so well in terms of the job satisfaction and job retention. Yeah,
no, for sure. For sure. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't covered?
You have the info, like
I do.
Show notes. Yep. We'll put those in the show notes, as how they can reach me via LinkedIn. And also you can find me. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. If you're connected to Teresa, you can find me. But my given name is David Matthew Scherer. Only Catholic sisters and my wife, when she's really mad at me, are allowed to use the 4-syllable version of my first and second name. So I go by D as in David MATTSCHERER. And I hope that you'll reach out to me and you'll say, hey man, I heard about the MTR on Teresa's podcast. Love to know more. And I'll tell you that I'll reach back to him within 1 to 2 days.
I love it. Thank you so much, Matt. It's been such a pleasure talking to you today. And I think that everybody can take away so much from what you're offering. And I will be taking you up on that offer once I know definitively if I'm going to do that year in the States, if I'm going to take another set of orders, or if I'm going to put down papers this September. That's the 3 decisions that I'm currently deciding on. And it really has a lot to do too with what the military can offer me next, and if I see there be a potential for promotion, or if even I want to promote. So I've got a lot of options, and just trying to figure it out. But I've thankfully got some more time to decide. So I will make that decision in due time.
Well, let us know, Teresa. We're here to help you, and we're here to help anyone that listens to your podcast. And if you are somewhere on a ship and you're watching this, or someone sends this to you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Matt. I'm going to meet you backstage. I'm going to go full screen right here.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching this week. It was great to have 2 guests on in one weekend. Next weekend, I'm going to Iceland. Actually, I leave on Tuesday. I'll be gone for almost a week. It was my first duty station. So that's going to be very meaningful on a personal level. And we'll not be doing a podcast because I can't seem to master remote podcasts right now with internet connections and speeds and things. So at this point, we'll have no show for next week, but I definitely will be joining you again the week after that. So with that, take care, guys. Have an amazing day. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and bye-bye now.